The first skill component is communication. A coach would need to be good at communicating with their players and team. They would need to tell the players instructions such as what drill to do or what tactics to use. For example, in a basketball training session, the coach would give their team instructions as to what drill to set up or what play to run. The coach would have to communicate with their team to encourage them. If the coach doesn't encourage them, they might think they are doing something wrong and carry out the action differently the next time. A coach would have to encourage beginners more so that they don't give up on the sport, and elite players wouldn't need as much encouragement as they would know if they're doing something correctly. However, they should still be given compliments and to motivate them more. The coach would have to communicate with their team in order to manage the behaviour. For example, in a football game, if a player is shouting at the teammates and is not behaving right, the coach could have to speak to them about their behaviour. The coach must be as skilled at communicating with their team and must communicate with them clearly so they understand what they are meant to be doing and in what area they're meant to be doing it. This is for safety. If a coach doesn't communicate clearly with their team and the players don't know how to carry out the drill, it could result in them getting injured by using the wrong technique or doing the drill incorrectly. The coach would also have to communicate effectively with the performers and give them effective feedback. There are two ways they can do this. One way they can do it is terminally, which means the coach would speak to the performers after the drill or during the timeout when the performers aren't actually playing. Therefore, the other way a coach can give feedback to their team is concurrently. This is when the coach gives back feedback during the drill or during the game. Both ways are effective, but in different sports or situations. For example, in a basketball game, the coach would shout instructions and give feedback from the sidelines. This is concurrent feedback. However, in swimming, the performer would benefit more from terminal feedback because they might not be able to hear the coach from under the water and so wouldn't be able to understand what they are saying. Whereas after the length, the coach could speak to them and give them feedback. The coach could give the performers either positive or negative feedback. Positive feedback is good to use with both beginners and elite players because it can motivate them. However, with elite performers, positive feedback should be given less frequently and negative feedback should be given more, as they can find out what they're doing wrong and how to improve. Negative feedback shouldn't be used much on beginners, as they should focus on the positive so they don't become disheartened. The second skill a coach would have to have is that they must be good at problem solving. Problem solving comes up every game, training, and even before training. An example of problem solving a coach would have is if they're playing a football game and there are 15 players. 4 of them are going to have to be a substitute. This creates a problem for the coach because they would have to select the 4 people who will start off as a substitute, and that certain player might then feel unmotivated and not want to play for that team, or might even give up on the sport. The next problem a coach might be faced with is that the opposition might have one player who is causing problems for the coach's team. The coach would then have to use problem solving to stop that player. Usually, they would do this in basketball by putting their strongest defender on them. This is the same for opposition tactics as they are being used. The coach would have to problem solve a way around this. The third problem is dynamics. If 2 players on the team don't get on well together, the coach won't be able to play them at the same time as they might not pass the ball to each other, therefore putting the team at a disadvantage. A coach would need to recognise this and work around it. Next, the coach would have to think about the player and team strategies and tactics. They would have to read the game and see if the tactics are working or not, or if they need to change the game plan completely. They would also have to problem solve if the game was almost over and it is a crucial moment. For example, in a basketball game, the score could be even, and the coach would then have to think of the best possible shot to take and who was taking it, whether it is a 3 or a 2-pointer. Finally, the coach would have to problem solve the equipment, facilities and transport. If a rugby team has training but the pitch is either occupied or frozen over, the coach would have to either plan out a new session with the places available or cancel the training. This is the same case if not enough players turned up to the training or if there is traffic stopping the players getting to the location. The last skill component a coach would need is organisation. If a coach isn't organised, then the team might not be able to train. If the coach hasn't organised the facilities needed in order to train, then the team might not be able to train or might have to use a different training type, which could be less effective for the team. If the coach doesn't have the correct equipment, then the team might not be able to carry out a certain drill and therefore might not be able to improve what they wanted. If the coach isn't organised, then the performers or the other team might not know what time or the whereabouts of a game. This could result in a game being forfeited because one of the teams didn't turn up. If the coach isn't organised, then they might not have any drills planned or any way on which to increase the intensity level of the drill. This could result in the drill not being as effective and not improving the team as much as it should. Finally, the coach must be organised for legal documents and money purposes. If the coach doesn't have the legal papers required to enter a league, then the team might be forced to withdraw from the competition, or the same could happen if the money needed to play in the league isn't deposited by each player on the team. The coach would need their coaching license, otherwise if they are asked to show it and they've left it at their home because they were unorganised, then the coach might not be given permission to coach the game and it could also be forfeited.